Well, hello there, friends. It's Nate from the Vinyl Guide, and I'm holding here in my hand one of my favorite albums of all time, Led Zeppelin 2. Now, Led Zeppelin 2 is such a phenomenal album, and it is Led Zeppelin at their most energetic, their most hungry. They're playing at their peak, in my opinion, and there's not a bad song on it. I could listen to this over and over, and sometimes I do. I also did an episode on the first pressing of this album, which has an interesting story in itself, the Robert Ludwig pressing of Led Zeppelin 2. You could hear that on episode number 2 of the Vinyl Guide. And by the way, here's my stack of Robert Ludwig pressings of Led Zeppelin 2. I've actually thinned some of these out by giving these to some of them to friends or people who needed them. I've got them from all the different pressing plants as well in various conditions. Also, Robert Ludwig did a Master of Houses of the Holy, which I have some of those as well. So I'm not going to talk about these. There's another video where I go through Led Zeppelin 2 and a whole podcast that you can check out. But today I want to talk about some of the other pressings from around the world of Led Zeppelin records. Now, what you're seeing here is Led Zeppelin 2 from Australia, okay? Now, I have it right next to the American pressing, and the artwork that you see here inside the gatefold is pretty standard. I think everyone should be familiar with this artwork. However, in the Australian press, that's not the gatefold that you have. You have a different picture of Led Zeppelin inside the gatefold. And some credits there. Now, I haven't seen this picture in any other import versions, but of course I don't have that many from other regions, so I could be wrong there. But what tended to happen back in the day is a record company would send tapes or masters or plates to their overseas distributors along with album artwork. And sometimes not all of that artwork made it. Sometimes the foreign entity picked a different picture for different things. That's why sometimes you get records that have slightly different covers or totally different covers because the local market just changed them up. So that may be what happened here in Led Zeppelin 2. I don't know the whole story on why there is a different gatefold, but that's fine. That's just kind of part of the mystery. This is the actual record from Australia. Now, you can see it's the green Atlantic label, and for people who've lived in Australia, should be pretty familiar with this. This was the label that Atlantic Records used for the later part of the 60s. A lot of the soul stuff is on the Atlantic label, this green Atlantic label. I think I've got some Aretha Franklin that's and some of the Stax records that were released here in Australia on this green Atlantic label. So it's pretty cool. It's a deep groove label, as you can see here, nothing else interesting other than it is a cool looking label. So that is Led Zeppelin 2, the Australian version. Let me show you what happened with Houses of the Holy. Now, most of you are familiar with this cover of Houses of the Holy, with the children, the naked butts, and all sorts of things like that. I know that's been controversial here and there, but when the Australian distributor received the tapes and the pictures for the Houses of the Holy pressings, there really isn't any text here on the pictures. There really wasn't any instructions there. So the pressing plant developed this, which is essentially an inside-out record sleeve. So what I imagine happened is that the pressing plant got all the films, got all the recordings and everything, but without any text anywhere on the cover or I don't know what was included in the package. They just made the determination that this must have been the outside of the album and this was the gatefold, which, quite honestly, if I was presented with that same sort of information, I probably would have made the same call. Now, this was a day one slip-up that was discontinued immediately, and a few of these got out. I'm lucky enough to be able to have one of these. There's quite a few counterfeits of these out there on the market, and the way you can tell is a lot of the counterfeits just take a standard cover and twist it inside out. All right, and if you look at the top of the cover here, this is the standard cover. The orange is on the outside, and then inside the lip starts with the blue and the black there, right? Okay, so if you look at it just from the top, you see the orange. If you look at a counterfeit, if you look at the top, you'll just see the orange. If you look at the original reverse cover, if you look at the top, you'll see the dark cover, and then only when you open it up, the orange starts, a couple millimeters below. So that's how you can tell if you've got a counterfeit reverse cover or not. These covers, if you can find them, they generally go for 150, maybe 200 bucks. I'm lucky enough to live in Australia. They're a little bit more common here than they are in the rest of the world. But there you go. A couple of interesting pressings here of Led Zeppelin from the foreign markets. One last thing, and this is not an Australian pressing, but a Japanese pressing. Here's the Japanese pressing. It's a repress of Led Zeppelin 2. This is not a first press. This is a repress from 1972. And how can I tell it's 1972? Well, I look at the price tag. 2,000 yen. That's how much it was in 1972. There's other repressings of this that are from 74 and 76, and the prices are 2,300 yen and 2,500 yen. So the price is going up over time. If you find one of these and you want to see what era it's from, or what year it's from, which of the pressings it is, you look here at the price tag, 2,000 yen. Now, these records also came with a poster. Okay, and let me show you that because I have it spread out here. Led Zeppelin 2 and the band down here. Now it's a very similar green as we just saw on the Australian pressing, so that is kind of interesting. But it's a pretty boring poster, quite honestly. There's nothing on the other side. It's just plain white. And so almost all the times when I find a Japanese Led Zeppelin 2 pressing of this ilk, the poster's almost always inside it because, first off, it's not a very interesting poster. Second off, Japanese tend to want to keep all their stuff together in a single package, so there's not a whole lot of poster love in these sort of things. They generally keep them all together with the record. So there you go. Some interesting Led Zeppelin pressings from around the world, Australia, Japan, and of course the USA. For more record talk, if you love being a record nerd and having these sort of stories and hearing these sort of tales, well, tune into the Vinyl Guide podcast, www.thevinylguide.com. We do an episode every Monday, and we talk to artists and behind-the-scenes folks about the records that inspired them and the rare records they've been part of. All right, for the Vinyl Guide, this is Nate, and until next time, keep spinning. Cheers.